we go. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the online version of the Art to Science program. This program is sponsored by the Joint Institute for Nuclear Astrophysics, which is funded by the National Science Foundation. So I'm Dr. Mickey, I'm the host. I'm going to be hosting all these different sessions. I might even lead an activity or two later in the summer. So we'll be doing these activities 3 times a week for different age audiences through the end of July. And today's activity leader is Kenna Wallace. She's an undergrad student, also doing research on this program this summer. So she's trying to evaluate how good the program is. So whether you're following along live on Zoom or on YouTube, or whether you're watching this on YouTube later, we're going to ask that you fill out a survey afterwards just to give us some feedback as to how well it's going, so that we can evaluate the program and she can get some research experience in addition to all the education experience that she's getting. So today we're going to be doing paper circuits. On Saturday, the Snite Art Museum from Notre Dame is going to be leading an activity about one of their sculptors that they have or whose work they have at the museum. On Monday, we're going to have Miss Allison Moore, who's been a activity leader at the camp for a number of years. She's going to be showing you how to make oobleck, slime, and bouncy balls, all with the same ingredients. So be sure to join us Saturday morning with the Snite Art Museum and or Monday afternoon with Miss Allison Moore. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to McKenna. She's going to be telling you about paper circuits and electricity.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to have you guys here today. I'm really excited to be doing this with you. I've been making these by myself for a while, so I hope to see some of the ones that you guys make, because I'm tired of looking at the ones that I made. So here's some example cards that I've already made. I've got a Father's Day card, and it's got a sun that lights up. So that's an LED right there in the middle. And here's my circuit on the inside. I also have this card with a heart that lights up. And this one I put a little indicator where to push to light it up. And again, we have the circuit on the inside. So I decided today I was going to make a Father's Day card for my dad that I think he'll actually really like. So this one I printed out and cut a little barbecue, and I want to put an LED behind these flames so I can make it look like they're lighting up. So if you guys have your papers ready, fold them into a card shape. So we've got the full paper right now, and I'm going to fold it into a card shape. And I think that this is called hamburger style or veggie burger style. And then I know that I want to put my LEDs behind here. So I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm going to poke a little hole behind the flames to show me where I want the LEDs to be. Now, if you don't have an idea yet on what your card is going to look like, you just want to put the light in there, you can put your LED anywhere on the card. Just make a little note where you want to put your LED so that when you open it up, you have the indicator. So my holes are a little small to see on camera, but there's one right here and there's one right here. And I'm going to use a marker to draw out my circuit before I put the tape down. So if you have a pencil or a pen or a marker, that will work. So I know I want an LED right here, and I want an LED right here. So now I need to make my circuit. So I'm going to draw out my circuit, and there are a couple things that we need to keep in mind. We need to use a battery, and we need the LED in there. Now, batteries have a positive and a negative side. So if you've ever looked at a battery, it'll usually have a plus on one of the sides. And these little batteries that we're using should have a plus right there on that top side. So it's a little hard to focus, but there's that plus. And that's going to be important for when we connect the LED. So I'm going to draw my circuit now, and I'm going to put the battery right here. And I'm going to say that this is the positive side of my battery. I'm going to put it up like that, which means this end coming out is going to be negative. My LED also has a positive and a negative side. So for this first circuit, I'm only going to put one LED in it, and I'm going to go like that. Now, one of the things that is important is we don't want this to be on all the time. We want it to turn on when we push or flip a switch or push this button here. So I've got this button, I push it and it turns on. So this is my button. There's this disconnect right here. And when I have the card closed and push it, this comes into contact with this and it completes my circuit. So a circuit is a complete path that electricity can travel through. So I'm going to put my switch over here just like I did last time. So to do that, I want this nice straight line so it's easy for me to do. So here's my switch. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I get my LED in the correct position. So I'm going to use a yellow LED for my first one. Now you can put only one circuit and one LED in your card, or you can make as many as your supplies let you. So here's my LED. And if you look at it, you can notice that one of the legs is longer. You see that longer leg? That's my positive side. I want that to go towards the side where the battery's positive side is. So just like I made that plus here, that's where I want it to go. So I'm going to put it in with the plus right there.
You can talk to her.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can just type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask.
It's too fast. I didn't get to understand and I got everything wrong.
That's okay. So let's start at, we draw the circuit. Have you drawn the circuit?
I got it, but I found out I drew it, but I found out it was on the wrong side.
That's okay. You can start, if you want to start with a new paper, you can start with a new paper. So why don't I show you, I'll draw one again with you on an orange piece of paper. So this would be the front of my card. So here's my orange piece of paper. And let's say that I want the LED to be right here. So this is the front. I'm going to poke a hole so that I know this is where I want my LED to be. So there's a little hole in the front now. And if I go to the back, if I open it up, there's my hole right there. So that's where my LED is going to be. And then I'm going to draw a line coming away from my LED, and I'm going to say that's positive with a plus sign. And I'm going to have a battery and make sure that the positive side is going to that positive sign. So two plus signs, we want to make sure that they are connected together. And then coming down off of the LED, that's going to be the negative side. And that little battery I showed you that had a positive side with that plus on it, the negative side is just the opposite side. So it's this textured side. If you touch it, it's all bumpy. So that's going to be the back of the battery. So that'll be down here. And I'll show you later how we're going to make it so the battery gets touched on both the positive and the negative side. Then I'm going to draw that little switch. So there's an empty spot and a spot on this side. So when I close the card, they touch. And then we just connect the circuit. So if you want to make it a rectangle, you can. If you want to just draw a line like that, you can. Does that make more sense? Is that a little bit more clear for you? All right, so I'm going to keep going with my circuit in here by putting the materials down, but I'm also going to keep this on the screen for you to look at. And let me write down, just so you know, here's the LED. All right, so we have this model to look at. And then here's that first one that we kind of started off a little bit wonky. And I'm going to get my yellow LED and put it onto my first circuit. So for this one, I want my yellow LED to stick out. So I'm actually pushing it through that hole that I made. And you can see I've got the legs bent so that they kind of go along that line. And remember, let me show you one more time that there is a positive and negative end to the LED legs. The one that's longer is our positive leg. All right, so this is going to be the first time that I am using conductive tape on our card so far. And I just want enough so that it's touching the legs and holding it down, because that's my first step. So I'm going to put just a little bit to cover each leg. So here we go on the positive side. And you want to make sure it goes from the leg out. You don't want to put it over the whole thing, because then you won't have a positive end and a negative end. It'll all be connected. We want them to be separate. This is the positive side and this is the negative side. So in our example drawing, you can see it a lot more clearly. This is the negative side, negative to negative, and this is the positive side. So then I'm also going to put this conductive tape on the other leg of the LED. And we'll do this whole thing over when I put the second LED on, because I'm going to make a whole second circuit. That way you can see a circuit being made more than once. So now I want to put the rest of my stuff in. But one of the things that can happen when you're using this conductive tape on LEDs is it can come off pretty easily. So if you have a little bit of tape, scotch tape, or masking tape, or whatever tape you have, even if it's duct tape, just tape over it so that it stays down. But you want to make sure you have enough sticking out so that you can connect the copper tape to the next copper tape bit. So now my LED is nice and secure in there. And we're going to keep going with this copper tape. And I want to put copper tape all the way to the negative end of my battery. But remember, I'm leaving gap so that we can have an on and off switch. So we have a button we can press that makes our circuit turn on and turn off. So I want my switch to be right here underneath the battery. So I'm going to put some tape here, and then we're going to leave a blank spot and then put some tape up to the battery. So right there is my blank spot. That's my switch. And then this tape right here is going to go on the other end of the card where it's going to touch when you close it. So I'm just going to make sure that it touches, and I can see that it does. It's a little hard to see on camera, but when I close it, those two copper pieces touch. And now we're going to get that battery in place. So again, here's my battery, and you can see the plus on the positive side there. So this bumpy side, the negative side, is going to sit right on that negative side copper tape. Remember, we're going negative to negative. Then on top, we're actually going to put some of this conductive tape to touch the positive side. So there's my conductive tape on top. It's sitting on the negative side. We've got conductive tape on top on the positive side. And I'm going to put that down onto the paper and connect it to the positive end of my LED. So just like the LED, the battery is a little loose if it just sits like this, right? We've got the positive end taped, so it is stuck on the card, but it's only stuck on that side, not on the negative side. So what I'm going to do is I'm again going to use a little bit of masking tape, and you can use Scotch tape, duct tape, masking tape. And I'm just going to put it across the battery so that it stays in place. So I'm going to test this, see if my light turns on. If it works, then I'm going to show you from the beginning again how to make this paper circuit. So here's my barbecue. I'm going to move the flames aside. And when I press, let's see here. There we go. So it does light up for me. So now we're going to work on putting in a second LED, and that's going to be our second circuit on here. So again, I'm going to draw out, but this time I'm not going to poke it through the paper. I'm just going to lean it against the paper. So we're going to have the second LED right in this spot.
Before you go through that one, do you want to talk a little bit about the troubleshooting if your light didn't come on? What things would you check?
Yeah, so if my light didn't turn on, one of the first things I'd check is if it's making contact with that little button push we made, that gap. So I'd want to make sure, does it actually touch when I close the card? Because if it doesn't, it's not a circuit. A circuit is a complete path that electricity can follow, and it can't follow a path if there's a break in it. So first thing I check is that. If that looks fine, if it touches, then it might be the connection to the battery. So I'd want to make sure that the negative end is touching the copper tape on the bottom, and that the positive end is touching the positive end on the battery. If you put your battery in upside down, it won't work, because remember we said that LED, it has a positive and a negative end. So here's a little blue LED. And if you look at the legs here, one is longer than the other. That longer one is positive. And that longer positive end needs to be touching the positive end of the battery. So imagine this copper tape as if it was extending this LED leg all the way to the top of the battery. And same with the negative end. It's extending through this conductive copper tape all the way to the negative end of the battery. If your circuit still isn't working after you've checked the battery and the battery looks right, it could be the same issue but on the LED's end. So maybe you put it in opposite. So again, you want the positive end, that longer leg, extending all the way to the positive end of the battery, and the negative end going to the negative end of the battery. Another thing you want to make sure is that all of your different copper tape pieces connect. So we have this little break, and that's intentional, but the rest of them need to be touching each other. If you're worried for some reason that you've troubleshooted the whole thing and it's not working, you can test your LED and battery at the same time. So positive end is longer, negative end is shorter. So I'm going to put this positive end on the top of my battery and then touch the negative end, and my LED lights up, so I know my battery and my LED are working. If it didn't light up and you have more than one battery, you can try again using another battery. And if your light lights up, then the first battery that it didn't light up with is bad. If it doesn't light up, your LED is probably bad. So if you have gone through all of that and it still doesn't light up, it might be good to draw out your circuit again and try from the beginning, because sometimes that copper tape just isn't touching enough or just barely touching. So you can see sometimes mine doesn't light up when I squeeze around. If I make a little sign on the front that says push here, that'll also help with that, because then I'll know where I'm supposed to touch to light up my light. So I'm going to start on my second circuit. Before I do that, are there any questions, or is anyone having any particular troubleshooting through what they're doing so far? All right, so my second circuit, I'm going to try to make it look a little bit cleaner for you. So here's that LED, and I'm just going to draw a line straight to here. So this is, again, I'm going to choose to be the positive end. And here's my battery. It's going to be positive. And then coming off the LED is the negative end. And we're going to draw this down a ways, because remember, I want to make a break in the circuit. So I'm going to take it to here. And then this will be my break to the negative end of the battery. So something that I'm going to need to be careful of in this circuit is I can't have this negative end touch this plus side. Did you have a question?
My dad checked the LEDs before using them for the project, but now they're not working. They were working, but they're not working now.
Do you have your battery?
Yeah, the battery's on.
Okay, lift the battery up for me. And then take your LED and do that quick battery test that we did. Awesome, so your LED looks good. What about is it your brother? So if it does light up like this, that means both the LED and the battery are good. All right, so for the second one, I'm actually going to grab a red LED, because I want yellow and red to be the fire on my barbecue. And again, I like to start by putting my LED in, because it's very clear to me where the positive and negative sides of the battery need to be if I put my LED in first. So I check for the longer leg. And if I'm looking at it, it's this top one right here. That top leg is longer. And let's see if I can make it really clear to you guys too. That's a good. So if you look at that LED, one of the legs, there we go, it's longer. So you can see the one on the left is definitely the longer leg. And that one needs to connect to the positive end of the battery. So we're thinking about it like we're stretching that positive end all the way to the battery. So there's my LED. That's where I want it to go. And I'm going to start by putting a little bit of conductive tape on the positive leg of the LED. And now I'm going to put some on the negative end of the LED. All right. And then I'm going to, just like before, put some tape on top of these, because this copper tape, the conductive tape, if you feel it, it's very thin and it's easy for it to break or for the legs to escape. So I want to make sure that my LED stays where it is. And remember, the LED is where it goes from positive to negative. So you don't want the copper tape that goes on the legs of the LEDs to touch each other. You want them to be separate. So there's a break between the tape. All right, so next I'm going to put in my copper tape all the way down to this negative end.
Miss,
Yeah.
could I, could we like poke 2 holes so that it will not touch the LED together?
Yeah, you could definitely poke 2 holes and have the LED stick through with the legs going through the construction paper. So I think what our friend is asking is if you can poke 2 holes into the paper so that the legs go through separate holes. So let me poke a second hole here. So if I were to put this LED on the outside here, you can see that it's going through 2 separate holes. And they're separated there by construction paper. So you can definitely do that. All right, so we're almost to the part where we've got the break. And remember, I have to be careful there that it's not going to touch the positive end of the battery. So I'm going to put just a little bit coming up here. And then I want to mark where I want my break to end, and I want it to end before the battery. So I'm going to put it right there. So I'm worried that that might touch the battery, so I'm going to move it down just a little bit. There we go. And then before I move on with the rest of the circuit, I want to check that when I close, the copper tape touches both sides there. Right. And it does, but this one's just a little bit crooked and may not touch it well. So I'm going to put a different piece and make it a little bit more straight. There we go. So it touches across the 2 and it doesn't touch the positive end of the battery, which is exactly what we're looking for. So here we go. We're going to put the conductive tape underneath the battery. So that's where the negative end of my battery is going to sit. And here we have that battery again. There's the positive side, that plus. So that means this textured bit, that's negative. And I'm going to set it down with that plus side up. And then we're going to put some copper tape on top of the battery.
So McKenna, while you're doing that, I just want to quickly show a different way of making a switch, because some people like me aren't very good at lining up the tape like that. Pull this back. And so the way that I've kind of done it is I have actually 3 LEDs, and you can see that my tape goes around and makes a complete circuit except for here where the battery is. And so I've got one going underneath the battery for the negative side, and then when I close it, it'll light up. And so basically my switch is enclosing the card, then the tape goes to the positive side. So there's lots of different ways that you can make the switch.
There is definitely a lot of different ways. I've also seen, if you want to get really creative, a metal paper clip, one without covering on it, that you can use to connect 2 parts of your circuit. And I'm just taping my battery down, make sure that it doesn't come loose from that copper tape. Now I'm going to test to see if my red LED works. And it does, it lights up. Let's see if I can get both to light up at the same time. All right, so they are, there's the red, there's the yellow. So I've got those 2 lighting up. Can fix my flame in that barbecue. And then however I want to finish off this card for my dad, I will. Here's that circuit that we had someone mention. Could you stick the LED through 2 holes? And that way you really are keeping everything separate. So if we've got these 2 and we stick it through just like that gentleman offered, then we can also do this circuit. And we can do it either with this break or how Dr. Kilburn said he put a battery and then the connecting line, and when you close it all the way, it creates a full circuit. And if you look at the Zoom screen, Dr. Kilburn is showing his with that battery. So before I do anything else to this, I want to know if you guys have any questions or if you've made any progress and you want to show me. I'd love to see it. Ooh. So it looks like we've got a fun one from Dr. Kilburn. It's got all kinds of lights on it.
So I'm not as artistic as McKenna is. I can draw a Christmas tree. That's about the extent of my skills. So if you want to make Christmas cards, oh, this guy's, there we go. It's kind of lighting up. So I've managed to get 3 lights to light up. One of the interesting things is the color actually matters. Different colored LEDs sometimes require different voltages to light up. It depends on whether or not it's a white LED with a different colored plastic, or whether it's actually a different colored LED underneath the plastic. But sometimes they can take more voltage to light up. So you might be able to get a red one to light up, but not a blue one or something like that. So here's the little card that I made. Christmas cards are easier for me. And again, mine doesn't look as pretty on the inside as McKenna's, but I've got 1 LED across here. So I bent the legs so that they can't touch. I've got one here in the middle with the legs bent so that they can't touch. And then another one down here. And so to make multiple lights light up with 1 battery, I had to connect all the short legs together and connect all of the long legs together. And that's one way of it's called putting them in parallel. So connecting all the short legs and connecting all the long legs, and then just with 1 battery. So there's my little Christmas card.
So we can do this actually the same way that our friend suggested by poking through. If you see, I've drawn a second line through my circuit with a plus to the plus side and a minus to the minus side. That means the long leg, like he said, is going with this long leg and the short leg is going with the shorter leg. So here I'm going to put a second LED. But if I look at my little chart that came with my LEDs, I can see that the blue takes more volts than the red. So I'm not sure if 2 blues can light up, but I want to try it. I like to experiment with things. So I'm going to just try it and see if I can get 2 blues to light up with 1 battery. So we're going to poke through again. And we've got the long leg going to the positive and the short leg to the negative. And then we just want to get that copper tape down on them. So we're going to copper tape both of these. And I'm just going to put this tape all the way down my marked circuit line. And I know that some of you were having problems with the LED or battery. Did we figure it out, or are we still having some issues with getting our LEDs to light up? Looks like maybe we've got it a little bit figured out. All right, and you can see that right here is coming up. This is part of why I like to tape it down with a little bit of masking tape. So I'm going to use some masking tape on that LED legs to make sure that they stay nice and secure underneath this copper tape. Now, if you don't like the masking tape, you can use clear tape, which I think also looks nice. Or you could do, like I did in this one. I've got some duct tape that's Galaxy, and so I thought that might be fun. So I put that in this circuit here. All right, so now I'm going to connect this positive to this positive. And we're going to do the negative end. And I'm really curious to see too what colors LED lights you guys are using, because I've used mostly yellow and red so far. This is my first time using a blue, and I'm using 2 blues because I'm ambitious. Yellow is definitely my favorite color, and that might be why I chose to do multiple circuits with a yellow LED. And I'm going to tape down these legs again on my LED to make sure that they stay nice and secure in that copper tape. One of the things that you could do if you're troubleshooting and your LED isn't lighting up is make sure that that copper tape is making really good contact with the leg of your LED. Because if it comes loose and it isn't touching, again, we don't have a circuit. We need a complete path for the electricity to follow. If that's kind of hard to remember, just remember that circuit sounds like circle. So a circle is a complete path, right? So a circuit needs that complete path for electricity to follow. So now the last thing I need to do for this circuit is to put my battery in and then see if we have any luck at all doing 2 blues, which we saw take more voltage or more volts than red or yellow. And I'm almost out of copper tape. I think this might be the last circuit of my supplies. So I'm doing the classic Miss McKenna button or break. It's the one that works the best for me, but just like Dr. Kilburn was saying, there's all kinds of ways to do it, and it's a lot of fun to be creative about it. If you have an idea and you want to try to see if it works, I encourage you to do it because the more creative you get with these, the more fun they end up being. So I just placed the negative end of the battery down on that copper tape. Remember that textured is the negative and the positive up top. And now I'm going to place the tape on top of the battery on that positive end. And we're going to connect it to this positive end where we have our positive LED legs. Remember the longer legs. And then I just want to secure my battery so that it doesn't wiggle out of there or touch somewhere and make my circuit not work. All right. This is the final test to see. Do 2 blue LEDs light up? Oh, I have a green on there. Oh, interesting. So something interesting is going on with the connection of these LEDs. There's both lighting up for us. And green is a high energy one too. It takes 3 volts. So we are able to successfully light up these 2 higher energy LEDs using the parallel method. Like Dr. Kilburn said, you want the long legs together and the short legs together. The negative ends touching the negative end of the battery, the positive ends touching the positive. So that's my last circuit of the day, but I'd love to hear from you guys or see what you've done so far and to answer any questions you might have. I can stick around and kind of talk to you for a minute or two and work out what's going on with your circuit, see if we can figure out how to make it what you want it to be.
I'm going to go ahead and give some quick reminders first. Maybe I'll show myself. There we go. So just for anybody else who may be watching this later tonight from home or tomorrow, on Saturday morning, we're going to have an art to science activity with the Snite Museum of Art. It's going to be about the Charles B. Hayes Family Sculpture Park. You're going to be making a kinetic sculpture out of paper and string or yarn, and you'll also probably need some scissors or tape. And then Monday, we've got an all ages activity, but it's kind of geared towards the little kids. Stretching, pouring, and bouncing solids with Mrs. Moore. And so you're going to need things for mixing, things for stirring, cornstarch, borax, and glue. And with just those items, cornstarch, borax, and glue, you can make 3 different things, including a bouncy ball. So those are the activities coming up. Next Wednesday evening from 7 to 8, we will be distributing supplies for the following 3 activities. One of those is going to be extract your DNA. The other 2 are still being finalized. And after you finish watching this or doing the activity, please fill out the evaluation survey for us so that we can keep improving this and know how it's going. And I'm also going to be adding a folder on the program website where you can upload photos or videos of your projects. You know, in camp, we usually have an art show at the end. We still want to kind of have an art show if we can. So we're going to be doing a digital art show, but we'll need your photos and videos to include in that.